The 2023 driver market has offered a Formula 1 silly season for the ages, and it's still not over. 3 teams have seats to fill for next season, and surprisingly at this stage of the year there are quite a few drivers still in play. While Alfa Romeo technically has a seat spare, we understand that Zhou Guanyu is set to be officially confirmed as Valtteri Bottas' teammate once again. So we see Alpine, AlphaTauri, Haas and Williams as the teams with vacancies. And the list of drivers in play include race winners Pierre, Gasly and Daniel Ricciardo, likely Haas refugee Mick Schumacher, out-of-work drivers Antonio Giovinazzi and Nico Hulkenberg, and rookies such as Nyck de Vries, Doohan and Logan Sargeant. Clearly there are a lot of pieces to the jigsaw, which we'll be working through in this video, so keep watching until the end to see what we think the final picture's going to look like. The biggest team in this mix is also the most important. Alpine's choice has knock-on effects for at least 2 others. After losing Fernando Alonso to Aston Martin for 2023 and Oscar Piastri to McLaren, the blunt truth is Alpine's looking for a third choice driver at best to partner Esteban Ocon next year. The options are decent, though not exactly stunning, and Pierre Gasly remains the clear early favourite. He's under contract to Red Bull and AlphaTauri, although terms for his release are believed to have been agreed on the condition that his current employer secures a suitable replacement. That situation merits its own focus, which we'll give it a little later in this video, but as far as Alpine's concerned, it couldn't treat Gasly as an absolute nailed-on option. That's a wise approach for a team that's twice been gazumped already in this silly season. This brings us to a 3-day test that Alpine put on this week with a 2021 Formula 1 car at the Hungaroring, where 3 drivers have taken part. It was far from a shootout, not least because Gasly wasn't driving, but it was planned to allow several contenders to show the team what they can do. Alpine assessed Ferrari reserve and former Alfa Romeo racer Giovinazzi on Tuesday, with Williams stand-in sensation De Vries out on Wednesday, and Alpine Academy prospect and F2 race winner Doohan completing the 3-driver list on Thursday. De Vries is a man in demand, as we'll come to shortly, but Alpine has shown interest in him for a couple of months. His remarkable run to 9th place on his debut as a stand-in for Alex Albon at Monza means he has proven his capabilities. He's also driven several F1 cars and is a Formula 2 and Formula E champion, so a closer evaluation made sense. Doohan's presence was also logical. He is part of Alpine's driver academy and has performed well in F2 as a rookie, especially since the Piastri saga began. There are those in the team who like the idea of another of its protégés taking the place intended for Piastri and beating him next year, but Alpine CEO Laurent Rossi indicated he would prefer to place Doohan elsewhere for his F1 debut, as was intended with Piastri. Perhaps the most surprising participant in the Alpine test was Giovinazzi. His 3 full seasons in F1 with Alfa Romeo and experience as a Ferrari simulator driver make him a known quantity, and he's capable of being very quick but also a little erratic. His presence at least allowed Alpine to compare Doohan and De Vries against a driver with more F1 experience. Giovinazzi, De Vries and Doohan were not the only drivers on Alpine's long list, with Nico Hulkenberg also remaining under consideration even though he wasn't driving at the test. But in all honesty, we think this test in Hungary has turned out to be quite pointless. Shifting circumstances meant that by the time the track running started in Hungary, Alpine already had reason to be very confident it would get Gasly after all. While we run through the final twists in the driver market, let us know in the comments who you would like to see take these seats in 2023. And if you can like our video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, that would really help us out as well. Alpine's plans for the Hungary test varied as time passed, and that even happened in the days leading up to it, when IndyCar driver Colton Herta dropped off the list. Herta was never an Alpine 2023 candidate, but was actually scheduled to drive to help Red Bull's efforts to get him a super license so he could leave IndyCar and race for AlphaTauri. This was obviously linked to freeing up Gasly so Alpine could sign the Frenchman. No wonder then that Alpine was happy to help. But Red Bull abandoned that push because Herta is controversially not eligible for an F1 super license, and the FIA will not budge on this, so there was no need for Herta to test. This initially seemed to be bad news for Alpine. Until AlphaTauri has a replacement for Gasly, he's going nowhere, and Red Bull isn't keen on any of its current junior drivers as a 2023 F1 option. So Alpine's plan to test other candidates looked like it might be essential, but we think Gasly's still going to be released by Red Bull anyway. It quickly emerged that Red Bull had identified an alternative option outside its own driver pool, and that's now been confirmed to be De Vries. The Dutchman met with Red Bull Motorsport advisor Helmut Marko in Austria in the week after the Italian Grand Prix. He has admitted this in interviews with French and Dutch media, and all signs point to Red Bull swooping in ahead of Williams and signing de Vries for AlphaTauri. Although the actual deal may still need to be done and de Vries still claims his future remains out of his control, it seems increasingly likely he will be on the F1 grid in 2023 and in the Red Bull fold. That means Gasly is expected to be free to take up the Alpine drive, as it's unlikely de Vries can force his way into Alpine after taking part in the test, and there's no reason to think he'd prefer that route anyway. One thing that remains unclear at the moment is quite why this deal appeals so much to Red Bull. With Herta there was a clear external motivation. Getting an American driver into F1 when the championship's profile in the United States is growing, and Red Bull having a massive American title sponsor in Oracle had obvious off-track benefits. But perhaps Marco's just been convinced by how well de Vries handled being thrown in at the deep end at Monza. He's been known to make snap decisions like this in the past, and if Gasly is heading for the exit door after 2023 anyway, Red Bull may simply view this as a good bit of business, given Alpine will be paying compensation as well because Gasly is under contract. If de Vries joins AlphaTauri alongside freshly confirmed 2023 driver Yuki Tsunoda, then Williams will likely turn to a full rookie to partner Alex Albon in 2023. Williams has its own F2 driver in Logan Sargeant, who's a race winner in his rookie season and has impressed the F1 team, so he's considered a contender. Sargeant still needs to qualify for an F1 super license though, and while that's likely, it's not guaranteed. He needs to finish in the top 6 in the championship and is currently 3rd with a 12-point buffer to 7th. There's only one event remaining in F2, so this is clearly in Sargeant's control, but the finale isn't until Abu Dhabi in late November, so Williams will have to wait a while to know for sure. Should Sargeant fail in his super license quest, then Doohan may emerge as the frontrunner for that vacancy. Williams has been linked with loaning him from Alpine in the same way it was hoping to take Piastri for a couple of years. These F2 drivers have been prominently linked with Williams more so than experienced options like the out-of-contract Daniel Ricciardo and Mick Schumacher. That's not to say that those two drivers are out of consideration entirely, but if they are on Williams' radar, then team boss Jost Capito is doing a great job of keeping it quiet. With Haas set to look elsewhere for 2023, Schumacher will be pushing hard for a new seat. Realistically, he's looked like nothing more than an outside shot for Alpine, but as he has F1 experience and is an active race driver, you would think he would be of interest to Williams. He's set to part company with Ferrari, where he's officially remained an F1 junior for the last couple of years and become a free agent. Schumacher must therefore retain some chance of getting the drive, but it seems to be very slim, and probably contingent on Sargeant not qualifying for a super license. It's a similar situation where Schumacher finds himself at Haas, where he's the incumbent driver but not thought to be the first priority. Haas is instead seriously considering Hulkenberg and has previously not ruled out Ricciardo. Hulkenberg is currently under contract to Aston Martin as a reserve driver. While he hasn't raced full-time in Formula 1 since 2019, at 35 he's regarded as a viable short-term option for Haas given his experience, and he'd no doubt be a good professional pair of hands who could be relied upon to bank points consistently if the car's up to it, which is ultimately what Schumacher has been missing. As for Ricciardo, he's been conspicuous by his absence from consideration by Alpine, since it was announced he would be dropped by McLaren at the end of the season. While he is the most well-appointed free agent, despite his 8 Grand Prix wins and excellent reputation before moving to McLaren, Ricciardo seems to be heading for a year on the sidelines. So here's the fun part, where we risk making ourselves look a bit stupid and immediately out of date. If we had to guess right now, the final seats for F1 2023 will go the following way: Pierre Gasly to Alpine, Nyck de Vries to AlphaTauri, Nico Hulkenberg to Haas, and Logan Sargeant to Williams if he can get a super license. But that's just what we think. Let us know your picks in the comments and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and leave us with a thumbs up before you go.